Good afternoon. On what is a mild, grey and cloudy day, it is Sunday the 17th of September. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. Courtesy of my partner. Thank you very much. And something interesting to unbox, or at least unwrap, which is this. Now this is published by Hachette Partworks.com. It's the Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer magazine or partwork. Now, if you don't know what partwork is, a partwork is a magazine which gives you parts of a thing. Usually it's like a collection of figures or parts of a model. So you might build a complete model of the Titanic, or a Lamborghini Veyron or whatever it's called. In this case, with the Dungeons & Dragons Adventure, you build up a complete Dungeons & Dragons collection. Depending upon the issues you start with. So this is issue 1. It's going to give you some dice, sort of like the fundamental kind of thing you need. But it is designed essentially to learn, play and explore, and includes a new and exclusive adventure. Promises expert D&D play tips, learn the lore, become a dungeon master. So, start playing today, Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer. Fire up your imagination and learn to play the world's most popular tabletop role-playing game with Dungeons & Dragons Adventurer. This brand new collection will teach you how to become a D&D expert with an exclusive adventure, easy step-by-step instructions and all the information you need to role-play compelling fantasy characters. Collect specially designed dice, maps, miniatures and more given throughout the collection, and join us on a wild ride through the D&D journey of a lifetime. So, it says, it promises sage advice, so inside your magazine, expert tips for players and dungeon masters alike, character creation advice on role-playing characters, from wizards to warriors, get started with pre-made character sheets, lore, learn about D&D's extraordinary locations, terrifying monsters and famous factions, exclusive adventure, hunt for treasure, battle monsters and explore fantastic realms. New D&D designs, so enhance your games with dice, maps and more. Alongside every magazine, you'll receive exclusive extras that help bring your fantasy world to life. This includes beautifully designed dice, complete with storage tins or velvet pouches, as well as miniatures, maps, booklets, and inspiration tokens. Vanquish your foes with our 8-page combat guide. Don't miss issue 2 with your set of 7 gold dice and an exclusive adventure map, available in 2 weeks' time, and then published weekly. So this builds and builds and builds. And it's going to take you numerous weeks in order to complete the complete set, and on a weekly basis. So we're talking $1.99 for the first issue. It's always the case that the first issue is going to be cheap, and it gives you something nice. In this case, this dice set, which I'll have a look at in a minute, and then increases the price to $4.99 for issue 2, and you get your set of 7 gold dice. Issue 3. Available 2 weeks' time, published weekly, price goes up to essentially double the $4.99. So, let's see what I can find out how to open this. It's essentially stuck down to this card, and then that's it. And then what you've got essentially is it's sealed in there, and we'll have a look more, see what is inside. See if I can actually. It's not so much a case of opening it carefully. There is an amount of force you've got to use here. So inside you have this magazine. You have an introduction to combat. Several pre-made character sheets, and essentially just an overview of what it is. And this bit is to encourage you to subscribe further, because if you actually subscribe direct with the publisher, you're going to get a whole lot more. But okay, so there's one other thing in this package, and let's see if I can get this. The knife, just slide this open, and this is the dice tin. And oh, that's quite nice. I actually like that. Essentially, the dice just taped in, so that just slides out like that, and then your dice tin drops out. And let's. So here we go. D&D Adventurer dice, and what you've got inside is a standard set of polyhedral dice, black with red numbers. So there is your percentile dice, and in the middle you have your 20-sided die, and there. My only, I would say it would have been nice if, say, the 1 or the 20 on the 20-sided die had been given a nice symbol or something that would have been marked out as a bit special. But you know, even at the most basic price, $1.99 for a decent set of dice in a nice little tin, reasonably sturdy. You know, you can't really sniff at that. I mean, you know, you can if you want to, but it's when you consider just how much dice can cost these days. And even that, you know, typically a base set of dice is going to cost you the equivalent of about £4 to £6, something like that, depending upon where you go. So let's have a look at the rest of the things in here bit by bit. So we have the magazine. Now, as you can see, it's hole punched. So you can essentially use this and put it into the folder that you're going to get with future issues. And inside, oh blimey, we have the contents page, and let's see. Make sure you don't miss out every new week at your news agents. So that's the sort of little flyer you give your news agents, and they will ensure that it arrives. Of course, that assumes you've got sort of like a friendly local news agent. Not everyone has. It's a special subscription offer, so it's telling you, okay, issue 2, nice set of gold dice, and then issue 3, a dice tray. So essentially all the tools you kind of need, the basic kind of tools you need to play a role-playing game, to play Dungeons and Dragons, which is dice, a dice tray, and then you know, just a little bit more coverage about what's coming up in future issues. You know, especially focusing on those free gifts. You know, free. So subscribe to Dungeons and Dragons Adventure today and receive fantastic free gifts, including possibly the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Dice jail. Got a D20 that won't stop rolling once, banishing your troubles will die to your very own wooden dice jail until it learns a lesson. And even my partner sat there, and even she's laughing at Louise is laughing at that because it is so ridiculous. Because, you know, I mean, that of course does depend upon your philosophy on how you treat your dice.
It looks like a gazebo.
And as she said, it looks like a gazebo. So I'm not going to ask its armour class. And it's too small a waist with a crossbow. Yeah, and then of course you get binders for your collection. So big, sort of like a little bit of advertising and so on. And I mean, the whole dice thing is ridiculous because essentially, okay, just put the other dice in your bag and get some other dice out. And the other thing is, if you're rolling, if you're just starting play and these are all the dice you've got, you don't want a choice but use those dice until you buy some new ones, if you're going to do that at all. You know, let's be honest, I'm still rolling dice that I bought 30 years ago, and they work fine. I am, you know, I'm in no way superstitious about my dice. You know, so anyway, so basics. Let's play. You know, so that's you know, going into the basics of how you play a role-playing game, and the adventure begins. So you've got like a you know, nice image of sort of like, here are friends sat around playing this great game, and that's fine. Essentially, that's what you pitch, but that's what you should be pitching, because that's what it is. And then the world of D&D. There's kind of a recognisable image there, with some poor blighter of a sailor about to be attacked by a beholder. Nice touches. The first thing I like within the first few pages, it acknowledges the origins of Dungeons and Dragons. You know, it does reference that. It's one of the issues I kind of have with the Dungeons and Dragons annual, which you'll see me unbox, which sort of doesn't acknowledge that back history. So then we have the structure of play, and this goes right from the start. You decide who takes the role of the Dungeon Master. Everyone takes on a character. The story begins. Play, describe their actions. Roll the dice. The adventure continues. You know, that's just a quick overview, and that sort of comes back down to is what is a role-playing game? Essentially, it's a series of structured conversations about the reality you're collectively participating in, and then basic rules in how to roll the dice, difficulty classes, role of the Dungeon Master, and then going back to the start, we've got discussion of session 0, playing the game, personalise your story, a balanced party, setting those things up, not in any great detail, but a discussion of it at least, and then a tip to the Dungeon Master how to manage the tone of the game. Again, not in any great detail. But again, if you think about this as the first introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, that's all fair enough. It's about the level of information that you need at this point. Then we move on to introduction to playing characters. So character outlines. We have essentially the introductions to the 4 pre-generated characters that come with this core package. Then how to choose your abilities, ability scores, and how they work in play, high scores, ability modifiers, proficiency bonuses. All this will be familiar if you have played or read Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Nevertheless, it's not necessarily designed those of you who have done that. Then species, looking at the options in terms of what you can play, and really just keeping it simple to the 4 pre-generated characters, so human, halfling, hill dwarf, and wood elf. Then moving on to class. I mean, I keep wanting to call character species, character races, but that's because I'm old, and that's what they were called when I started role-playing game a very long time ago. And then the 4 character classes discussed here: fighter, wizard, rogue, and cleric. So the 4 core classes, beyond any of the extras that have been introduced over the game, these are the ones you really need to play. And this will do the same thing for equipment. So we've got equipment packs. So these are associated with the different classes and characters you've already got created as pre-generated characters. So burglar pack, scholars pack, explorers pack, priest pack, and so on. Then on to a location, which is Phandalin. Now that's a really nice touch. It ties in with the forthcoming book for Dungeons and Dragons as we speak. That's coming out next week. The big Phandalin expansion book, which builds upon the Dungeons and Dragons starter set released all the way back in 2014. And the Mines of Pandelver is sort of like, I have to be honest, it's probably my favourite adventure still for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, because it feels closest to sort of like an older style of game. It's constrained and sort of like doesn't overwhelm the player characters or the game master, dungeon master, sorry. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the expansion is like. So exploring Phandalin, and then the Kingdom of the Hill. This is encounters a great introduction to the game. Players can use the 4 pre-generated characters to create their own D&D Beyond, or create their own. So this is the encounter. So it takes place at Stone Hill Inn. We've got a list of its features, a map, key locations, and description of what's going on there, and presumably there's a big rat threat with cranium rats, and then you come to the end of the encounter, describes what happens next, and you've got the swarm of rat stats. So it's really sort of like a mini location that you can use to demonstrate the style of play, what it's like, in the course of a single session. And then we have introduction to combat with these tiny little hooks on the book, so you can sort of like put it into that. If you have a look, they kind of match up with the file hooks in, you're going to get in the folder for Dungeons and Dragons. And I mean, the odd thing is, I can remember with Dungeons and Dragons, the basic Dungeons and Dragons set I had, which would have been the sort of like the BX version that I had, and then the Beckme version. They had the 3 holes down the side for similar for files, and then TSR did the same thing with the 2nd edition, so like Monstrous Compendium series. And of course, we couldn't get 3 hole folders here in the UK. So if anybody's collecting this in the States, it's going to have a bit of a difficulty unless they actually get the actual folders for this, because it's two holes, not 3. Anyway, back to the introduction to combat. So rules of engagement, how it works. So determine surprise, establish positions, roll initiative, take turns. Actions you can take during the fight, handling hit points and damage. Also reactions there. And then we have an example of combat. So you, nicely in a few pages, explains how it works, and then you get on to, well, here's, we're going to show you. We're not going to just tell you how it works, we're going to show you, and that's always a good move in a rule book. And on the back, begin the next round, round 2, you're on your own. We've told you how to do it, we've shown you how to do it, it's all yours. Then we get onto these character sheets. So we have the rogue, and these are bound. So a little thing about this is that this isn't. So that's the rogue. Okay, and you've got the picture of the rogue up there. Then the cleric here, and then we'll turn over, and we have a picture of the cleric, followed by the fighter. And the halfling wizard. There we go. And his picture on the back. Now, these are actually sort of glued together, but they split apart, so they're not separate. But again, they do have these binder holes in, so you can store them easily. And then lastly, we have a sort of like big overview again, more advertising. What is Dungeons and Dragons? Learn to play with easy to follow instructions. And this takes that photograph you saw earlier in the book and labels it. So, there's the Dungeon Master, here are the players and who they're playing, and so on the character sheet, the dice, and more. What you're going to get in the magazine, not just this issue, but future issues. And then how your collection builds. And how your collection builds and builds and builds. Because the thing is, whether or not are you going to stick with this, are you actually going to move on to, I like this, where do I go next? Well, you could go by issue 2, and that's fine, carry on doing that, but you could just go and buy a starter set, for example. And then, of course, you've got more advertising for what you get if you subscribe. So, that is quite a lot. Generally, you get a lot with this. There's no argument about that. It's a very fulsome package, and I think better designed than the annuals that I've seen for Dungeons and Dragons published here in the UK. You get this very nice dice set. You'll be happy with that. And as an introduction to Dungeons and Dragons, yeah, I think that's great. But whether or not you want to subscribe to a Partwork with sort of like 77 or 80 parts is another matter, especially on an ongoing weekly basis. But Dungeons and Dragons Adventure, first issue, well worth tracking down, grabbing, if only for the dice and the encounter. And perhaps if you've got you know, someone who's interested in Dungeons and Dragons, this actually makes a nice little sort of like throwaway gift, because A, it's inexpensive, it's also you know, it gives a good explanation, gives them the dice, gives them something to run, or something that you can run for them. So yeah, as that, great. I think there's a lot to be said for it. Anyway, thanks for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you enjoyed this, then please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you take the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here typically with a box or package from which I will unbox a book or game, or in this case, the first issue of the Dungeons and Dragons Adventure magazine stroke partwork, which I will talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.